All right, guys, we're here in sunny California, and we came out to see my man, Steve Saleen. What is up, Steve?
Hi, Evan. How are you?
Oh, fantastic.
Welcome to your group, and glad to have you here.
Oh, man, we just flew in from Tampa, 5.5-hour flight. We just landed, and we came to visit you. You said you had some cool stuff to show us, so what are we going to see?
We may have some interesting vehicles. We'll have a chance to look at our brand new 2021 white label and do a back-to-back comparison between what we start with and where we end up on this, what I think you'll find quite interesting. And then when we get to the price, that'll even be more interesting on the value. Plus kind of an interesting tour of other things that are going on here at Saleen today.
Oh man, so that's cool. So Steve, we're getting a tour. We're going to get to drive some Mustangs, which is always fun. So what do you say we get started?
Good. Well, let's go on over to our wall here and a little bit of a history lesson.
All right.
So here we are with the history. It shows that I started when I was only 3 years old. Otherwise, I'd be really old by now. But the winning my first race in a Mustang. So I'm always belonged to the Mustang crowd. And then kind of taking us all the way through my professional racing here with the Formula Atlantics into the Saleen Mustang development, all the way through until the development of the S7. So it's a little bit more of history of the company. We've always been car enthusiasts from day one, and being in Southern California, that was just a natural way to go, and we haven't lost that enthusiasm even today.
You know, I know that you've had a really rich history in racing, and you really started in Mustangs, but you got to tell me what happened here, because the front end is smashed on that GT350.
Well, like any good street racer, you would continue with each paycheck building up your car and getting a lot more proficient. And I had the opportunity to really modify all the suspension, aerodynamics of the vehicle, similar to what we do today. I had Weber carburetors on it, ran the stacks out through the hood,
right,
all for my street vehicle. And then one night, I decided I wanted to start racing. I took it up to the canyon where we lived in Whittier,
right,
Turnbow Canyon, and I put on my helmet that I carried in. I had my Nomex gloves.
Was that your test track?
This was my test track, but it's a street course, so there aren't too many people you see driving around, even then, with helmets on the street.
Right.
But I started down the canyon, and I was going really quick, and there's a part where you can look ahead and see if anyone's coming, and if it's clear, you can cross the double yellow line, apex, and carry that speed all the way through to the next corner.
Right.
And I looked ahead, and sure enough, it was clear, so I left my foot into it. I was in top gear, and as I came across it, somehow I missed a family driving a station wagon with dad and mom and sister and a son, and or daughter and son, and a big German Shepherd in the back.
You saw all this?
I saw all of this flash in my life, flash before my eyes, and luckily I had quick reflexes, so I was able to turn, and I missed the head-on collision with him. The problem is, though, I'm making a hard right in a corner that goes left, and just like the movies, I went through the guardrail, and I went off a 200-foot cliff down into the river below, which is what you see the remnants of that particular shot.
Did you drive it all the way down?
And I was driving it all the way down. I thought I was driving it down the cliff, but what I was doing is the front tires were hitting some of the trees and brush that was growing on the side of the cliff, and I ended up in a riverbank. I blacked out for a little bit, and then I came through. I couldn't get out the driver's side. My head had gone into the windshield, which you can see the smash on it, but fortunately I had a helmet on, which obviously probably saved my life. And then I crawled through and made my way back up to the top of the hill, right, eventually. Meanwhile, the family had stopped. The dad had gotten out of the car, and he was looking over when I helped me crawl up out of the ravine. And he's going, oh my God, sit down. And my first words to him were, boy, I bet I scared you. And then he says, well, sit down. He says, you got to be. And then I was kind of shaken. The adrenaline was kind of wearing off. And he says, you're bleeding out of your ear. And so I looked, and sure enough, and then that's when everything sort of coming well. And I talked him into driving me home, and I went in the back door and said, hey, Dad, because I still lived at home. And we had an accident, and he goes, yeah, your son went off just like the movies, and all of that sort of stuff. And we went down to the hospital, and I was in there for a week.
Oh, wow.
Under observation. And so fortunately I didn't break anything, but I messed up my left leg, and I was on crutches and therapy for a month or two and recovered it, and that was learned my lesson. So I was very fortunate. And I would tell everyone looking at this, you should not actually race on the street. No matter how good you think you are, you never can expect the unexpected. And so I learned my lesson on that day, and since then I've combined everything on the track.
And you won your first race.
Yeah, and then a few years later, I was able to put it all together and showed up at the track, and lo and behold, the worst possible thing happened, is I ended up winning. And I should have quit then, but I was hooked, and the rest of it, as they say, is history.
Well, the rest of it we're going to see today, so let's get started with this tour.
Well, very good. Let's go into the production. This is our production. You came at a good time because it's lunchtime, and so it's quiet on this. So this is where we take a perfectly good car or truck and tear it apart and yeah, start over with it. So it's I'm doing it. We make 3 levels: white, yellow, and black label, both in Mustang and in the truck line. And the trucks, we have a street truck, and then we have an off-road truck. So what you kind of see is a mixture depending on where we are production-wise.
Oh, wow. Look at Abe smiling. Abe's happy.
Oh, yeah.
So this is just your ordinary SSC on this. This is actually owned by Debbie Blaylock that she's donated for us to hold it for her. And we also have her version of a car up in the LeMay Museum as well, which we have a large exhibit up there, about 20 of the cars that I've done over the years, including my first Atlantic race car and my Indy car and #1. But this one here will be rotated up there shortly. But this is 1989 SSC. This is the official, unofficial 25th anniversary of the Mustang. And
we got to take a peek under the hood. Yep. Pop it up, Abe. Oh, yeah.
There it is. This is what everybody wanted back then.
Again, we had in the 80s, we had the strut tower brace, so that's nothing new, that we used it for racing. A pretty potent car for normally aspirated back in the mid to late 80s. So,
Was it tough coming up with spring and shock packages for these?
well, we spent a lot of time on the racetrack. You know, we won. We raced and actually started in '85. '86 we started winning races. '87, '88, '89 we won championships. You can see this has the adjustable suspension on it. We used Monroe for our shock absorber, and you could have soft, medium, and hard.
Adjustable from in the car, right?
Yeah, from in the car. This was, again, way ahead of today. You know, people were kind of used to that, but back in
Yeah,
1988, you didn't
here.
really have that aspect of it. So there's a lot of innovation that we did over the years, which we have become known for. 5 years later, we came out with the SA10.
This is like the trifecta of Saleen Foxbodies right here.
Yes.
And this again was our anniversary that we did with, however, this engine we supercharged. So this was one of the first time that you had superchargers. I actually started supercharging in 1985 with the Saleen Mustangs, and then we went into full production here in the late 80s, early 90s. So this represents the thinking at that point in time.
And then Steve, I'm familiar with this car because I drove this one
Yeah.
a couple of years ago.
This is 1988, and this car was owned by Derek Hall. Unfortunately, Derek passed away here this past year with cancer, and it's currently owned by his wife. We're actually having a memorial here next month, April 10th, for anybody that wants to come join and pay their respects for him. Derek was a true Ford lover and a true Saleen lover. He had worked for me over in the REVan operation for a number of years, and then he went back to school. He then worked at a local Ford dealership, and then when we started back up here in Corona, then he came and joined it, and he's been with me for 8 years. And unfortunately, he obviously succumbed to cancer this past year, but his legacy will live on here, and we're very happy to have had him as part of our Saleen family, and he will always be in our prayers and our hearts, as well as the rest of his family.